In this video, I want to talk about how to make interesting boss encounters. So this month I have been hard at work revising and play testing my first big tabletop role-playing adventure called Flick Silverpin's Guide to Dragontown. The zine is all about uncovering the mystery behind why the dragon of Dragontown has gone missing, and everything in the adventure points the players to this ruined castle that sits on a hill above Dragontown. And when the players finally figure out how to get inside the castle, they are greeted by the Sludge Behemoth. And that's exactly what I'm drawing right now. So before going any further, I should say that if you don't want the adventure of Dragontown to be spoiled, stop the video, go watch something else, or maybe if you want to see the time lapse, you can mute the video. But yeah, spoilers for the end of the Dragontown adventure ahead. Okay, so the Sludge Behemoth is sort of the boss monster of the adventure, or at least the biggest and baddest challenge that the players will have faced up until this point. My original idea for the Sludge Behemoth was simple. It's just a giant monster in between the players and their final destination inside this ruined castle. Just a big hulking boss fight with some cool abilities and a little hint of some story thrown in on top. But my friend, fellow DM, and the person who's helping me edit the Dragontown zine, Scott, he gave me some pointers and helped me rethink this final boss encounter a little. So a big part of the Dragontown zine is the players getting to choose whether they want to fight their way through the adventure, or they can also avoid combat entirely. So the idea of this big sludge behemoth, this giant mindless guard at the end of the dungeon, sort of pointed everything towards a fight. So Scott told me to think about the sludge behemoth not as a final boss fight, but more as an encounter. So what makes an encounter different than a simple fight? Sure, an encounter can be a simple fight, but it can also be so much more. You know, it can be a little bit of story and role-playing. It can be an interesting environment. It can be a puzzle or a trap or even some sort of social conflict. So how do I keep all of these things in mind when I'm constructing this final boss encounter? So the Sludge Behemoth isn't just protecting the final room of the castle, he's protecting the inside of the entire castle. So Scott's first suggestion was to have the Sludge Behemoth patrol all around the ruined castle. And that makes finding your way through this place feel way more dangerous. So when the players enter the ruined castle, they are greeted with this wall that has a giant hole busted through, and there's bones laying on the other side of this hole. They hear the sounds of heavy footsteps pounding further on in the castle, so much that it's making the stone walls shake around them. And as they explore further into the castle, they can see where doors used to be, but now there's splinters of wood and a giant sludge behemoth-sized hole there instead. So the players might want to try sneaking past the sludge behemoth, but they're going to have to stay really quiet, because if it hears any noise inside the castle, it comes charging towards it. And not making any noise means traps. Not like a tripwire trap with poison darts and stuff, but more like there's broken dishes all over the floor of the kitchen, and if you step on it, they crack and make a noise, alerting the sludge behemoth. Or maybe there's a rusty door that creaks as it opens when they're trying to explore some other area of the ruined castle. So the players are trying to find their way to the main tower of this castle, and of course the door is locked, so they're going to have to find a key. So that means traversing and really exploring and looking for this key inside the castle. And that includes going up to the second floor that is now just rotted floorboards and debris. Now the sludge behemoth is way too big to go up onto the second floor. It'll crash through the rotten wooden floorboards, but it can still hear the players up there, and it can reach up and grab the rotted wood and bring the floor crashing down underneath them. But that could be used against the Sludge Behemoth if the players figure out a way to lure it into one spot and then make the floor crash down on top of it. They can subdue it for a little while, enough time to get into the tower. Now, the second floor of the ruined castle has some story bits that I'm not going to spoil with specifics, but there is a little hint up there about how the Sludge Behemoth came to be in this place. And of course, the key to the tower is up there as well. In fact, the entire castle is filled with little story bits. You know, lots of history and clues about what Dragontown was like before the dragon got there. And of course, whatever history is left in this ruined castle is being trampled and destroyed by this patrolling Sludge Behemoth. Okay, so what happens if the players actually run into this creature and want to fight it? It still needs to be an interesting fight, right? So let's start with the obvious stuff. The Sludge Behemoth is a giant slime tree combination construct thing. So even though it's really big, it's going to be hard to hit because it has this tree armor all over it. And because it's patrolling around, listening for intruders, when it hears something, it has this charge attack. If it misses and slams into a wall, there can be environmental damage, or some of its slime will shoot out and do acid damage. I also wanted to have this chuck ability, so if one of the players gets into melee range with this thing, it can grab them, scoop them up, and then chuck them out of melee distance, slamming them into a wall, doing even more environmental damage. And you know, this is the big boss kind of monster, so maybe it should have another ability or two. If you have any ideas, let me know in the comments, and maybe they'll be included in the zine. Also, another interesting point, because the players will have encountered some slime creatures and some tree type creatures, they might have a good idea of some of the Sludge Behemoth's weaknesses, or at least have a little bit of insight on how to deal with this big giant monster. Now, the Sludge Behemoth only protects the inside of the castle, so if the players can sneak into the tower, or I guess exit the castle entirely, the Sludge Behemoth won't follow. But if they make it into the tower, they're going to have a whole other special NPC that they're going to have to deal with. And really, I think that's all there is to it. You just have to give the encounter a real purpose. In this case, the Sludge Behemoth is protecting the inside of this ruined castle. To learn why the Sludge Behemoth is protecting the inside of the castle, you'll have to read the zine. But I think the big thing is making sure this creature, or whatever the encounter is has some sort of interaction with the environment. And then if you can add some story on top of that, like some context of why this creature is there, even better. So by making the encounter more about why the Sludge Behemoth is in this place, making some notes on how it interacts with this castle, how it feels about the players intruding into this space, and how it's changing this environment, that leaves this experience up to the players to figure out how they want to tackle this encounter. And I think that's what makes for a very interesting and fun game of D&D. Alright, if you'd like to learn more about the Dragontown zine, there's a playlist linked down in the description. I've made a bunch of videos all about it. Go check them out. And if you missed the Kickstarter and want to pre-order the zine, it is available on my web store, also linked down in the description. If you've made it to the end of this video, you are the best. Special treat, check out this drawing of a flumph I just did earlier today. Alright, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya!